Welcome to Holistic Horseworks Talks. Join us with founder April Love as we talk about equine care. Learn what you can do to keep your horse happy, healthy, rideable, and sound through their 30s. Have a question you'd like to submit to the podcast? Just email April at holistichorseworks.com for a chance to get it featured on the next episode. So April, I've noticed that so many other horse clinics out there only focus on the physical aspects of the horse, but what I love so much about what you do is that you also address the emotional aspects, that being the holistic part of Holistic Horseworks. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I first started taking all of the classes and your instructors don't give you wording to use to try and get clients and help more horses. And I would say, oh, well, classes I took, I do energy work. And they'd say, oh, no, thanks. My horse bucks and jigs for 20 miles, don't need any more energy. And I go, no, that's exactly it. Why are they agitated? Why are they dumping adrenaline? Why are they jigging and bucking? And why do you think that type of horse makes a good endurance horse? Just because they don't settle for 20 or 30 miles. So getting into the emotional component. And is your horse in pain? When your horse is in pain, you're dumping adrenaline, and you can't sit still when you hurt and when you're dumping adrenaline. So they're like, oh, I'd make a really good 100-mile endurance horse. I'm like, but you're still in a crooked body with an emotionally imbalanced horse. And your emotions are going to affect your organs. One of the classes I took, Dr. Bradley Nelson, Emotion Code, is all about when we have trapped emotions in our body, how it affects our organs. So grief is lungs, and anger is liver, and fear is kidneys. So if you've ever seen a horse that seems angry or fearful or having breathing issues, it's another way to look into it. And in my program, we do something called defense physiology and bladder meridian sweeps, but we also blend the emotion coding. And we've had horses come to clinics that just wouldn't settle down in the stall so the students could work on them. And I said, well, just go clear the 3 trapped emotions that they can release today. And they would go do that. And all of a sudden the horse is just like nice and calm. And the owner's like, really? All you did was this little woo-woo thing going down his back, the governing meridian, and saying these things, and all of a sudden my horse can just settle and be in his body. And they're just amazed, and the students are really amazed. So there's aromatherapy, there's Bach flower essences, there's raspberry leaf for hormonal mares. My program teaches you how to use kinesiology and muscle tests, what would best benefit this horse. We've had horses that really well trained, but so uncomfortable that when the student's trying to work on them, they're just moving into them and body slamming them or throwing their head, trying to put on the dynamite release spray. And it's just, stopping a minute and saying, what is this horse's priority today? It's not like you put it in a little box and you brought it out and it's supposed to just behave. And you'll get a lot of people that say they do behavior training. But what is a behavior if it's not stemming from fear or anxiety or separation or past traumas stored in the body that are just going to keep resurfacing when the horse gets in that same situation again? Oh, every time we get to the trail, he shoots backwards and, we go off the edge or something. I had one horse in training for a lady that did the 100-mile Tevis rides. And the Tevis trail sometimes is only this wide. And it's a steep drop off. And you have to have a horse that isn't spooking and going straight. And she said the horse would just kind of see something and start shooting backwards. And if there was a horse behind it, he'd just knock it off the ledge. And we have to fix this. So I had the horse for 45 days, and we did a lot of body work and a lot of emotional. And then she came to ride her horse, and she's like, so what did you do to my horse? I'm like, worked on all those things. And she goes, but now he's boring. I said, yes, he's safe. He's calm in his body. He's focused on his job, and he's going down the trail. And she goes, but I miss all the excitement. And I'm like, you wanted safe, so she now had a horse that would walk, trot, and canter through anything. But stopping and dealing with the emotional issues of the horse and the pain issues of the horse, and even vision issues when we do cranial sacral, it's, what's going on inside that horse that's creating that behavior, not spend 30 or 60 minutes in the round pen until the horse finally gives up and says, okay, I'm going to do what you want. You should be able to go out there with a halter and lead rope, and the horse should want to join up with you and go do something. It's kind of boring standing around in the pasture all day by yourself. So I used to fix problem horses, but the problem horses kind of had more people issues. And it's kind of taking that horse out of that situation. And in 30 days, the owner would come and say, that's not my horse. You unzip the color of my horse and you put it on one of your nice, really grounded, friendly horses. And I just, month after month, I just kept hearing that. And I'm like, oh my God, we really have to wake up and educate people to, the horses had, fight or flight response. They sat down in the horse trailer and fell and slipped, or the horse trailer went over, or they slipped in the wash rack, or the horse went over backwards, or a foal was asleep next to a fence and woke up under the fence struggling, and all of a sudden he's on the other side. All of those traumas store up in the body. A lot of the things that I use for that, besides some essential oils, is the dynamite products. They're Bach flower essences. It's like a topical rescue remedy. And I used to go through cases of that. So now I figured out an easier way to do it. But they have a product called, I don't know if you can see this, Release. So that's one of the ones that I really like to use. They also have one called Tranquil and another one called Relax that you give them internally. So I would put that on their grain every day, and I'd hold the grain pan and kind of talk to them, and I would put the Release. Their pole is their memory center, and around their head and eyes, and just soothe this whole brain and nervous system of the horse, so that we could get into the reprogramming and clear the fear in the kidneys and the grief in the lungs and the anger in the liver, and look at what all the organs are doing. And then all of a sudden you have a horse that is perking up and looking at you every time you come out of the house when it's not even feeding time. Like, are they going to come over and do something with me? It's going to be fun today. And instead of dreading it and turning their butt to you, or head down, and you actually have to go catch them. I had 3 horses, and I'd go out with halter and lead rope and say, go bye-bye, like a dog with a leash, and they all come down to the gate. I want to go. I want to go. All my horses would just jump in the horse trailer, because my horse trailer, we balanced the tires every year. They didn't have all that vibration from the 4 tires that aren't balanced, because the horse trailer places say, oh, they're trailer tires, you don't need to balance them. I said, you go ride in that horse trailer at 60 miles an hour and see how you feel. And all the bridles are hanging on that wall, clanging and banging. I glued a rubber mat on the wall so that the bridles hitting weren't making a loud noise for the horses. And I'd go to the trailhead, and I could load 3 horses in like 20 seconds by myself. And I'd see all these people in these brand new sundowner trailers, and the horse got in to come to the trailhead, but he's not getting in the trailer to go home. What's wrong with this picture? Still comes back to the emotional security of the horse. And yes, you can have a horse trailer, trainer to get in the trailer, but is the horse actually calm and relaxed and okay with being in the trailer? So that's always what I got into, and what developed the whole equine musculoskeletal unwinding program. The fascia, the organs, the cranial sacral, the hoof, the intestines, everything is important. And everything starts with emotions and thought forms. If you have a job that you hate going to every day, your stomach's going to tighten up driving. You're going to be angst. At the end of the day of being at a job that you hate, you might be snapping at family, and kids or friends or whatever, because you're not in your happy environment. So I try to work with clients with, let's make your horse happy in his environment, which is his body, his mind, and his spirit. releasing trapped emotion, essential oils, Bach flower essences. There's so many different microcurrent therapies to use. So I teach the advanced applied kinesiology. So you can say, what would benefit this horse the most? But releasing defense posture and opening the meridian channels and clearing trapped emotions, I'd say is, in the top 3 of everything we should be doing for all of our horses. Even the foals at 6 months of age benefit from this program so much. And they, go from running around behind the mom, can't catch me, to actually running up to the fence and saying, give me itchy scratchies, give me itchy scratchies, and being a lot easier to lead and everything. And everyone's like, oh, but it's just a baby horse. It can't be having any issues yet. And I'm like, yeah, it does. It's already got some issues. So I actually have a video for how to work on foals as well. Because if we can start them earlier, I had a stallion broodmare babies and I'd imprint them and they were just so easy. I'd put them in the trailer. I'd haul them on the trails, even at 4 or 5 months old. I'd just go pony them for a quarter of a mile, give them itchy scratchies and treats, bring them home. There was no having to break a horse. We'd lean over them. They were totally fine with us just leaning over them. They were totally bonded with people and having that whole relationship that, they're like, oh, we really like your horses. If you fall off, they stop and look at you on the ground like, why are you on the ground? You're supposed to be on my back. So yes, I really like explaining to all my students and the people that follow me about the emotional, spiritual connection with the horse and how easily we can be having a bigger, deeper bond with our horses through this.
So you touched on this a little bit already, but I would love to hear more about how does the emotional trauma start in horses? Like how does a horse experience anger that they hold on to, or how do they experience grief that really just changes them on this physiological level?
So there's so many instances where a pasture mate dies. It was their horses bond in herd. You can have just the separation anxiety of the foal and the dam. Are you doing it gradually? So at my place, the babies would get separated out right on the other side of just a 6-foot no climb fence, and they could be with their moms. And then at nighttime, they could go back in at nurse, but they had, little horses to play with. So it was more gradual. Are you just ripping them apart and they never see them again and they scream at each other for days? Anger would come from, I've seen some pretty horrific training methods where the horse can't turn or bend on the bit, which would be cranial sacral issues and atlas and axis out of alignment. And they'll bit up the horse, and with one rein, they'll tie it to the stirrup, trying to teach that horse to bend all day. And they're just in so much pain. And I've had clients say they lost a horse. The horse went up and over backwards and died at the trainers. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've seen people sack out horses where they, lay them down and put tarps over them and all these things to terrify them, to try and sack them out. Or I've worked on horses that have had 2x4s taken to their heads while they were tied up. And the owners who got them rescued them. There's like a whole board, imprint across the whole nose bridge of the horse. There's some pretty horrific things that happen either on purpose or, just by accident, running through the field and sliding and stopping, or sliding into a barbed wire fence and getting all the hind legs all wrapped up in the barbed wire fence and the struggle, and they think they're going to die. There's been horses attacked by wild animals. There's so many things going on. It's just amazing. And they're just supposed to forget all that. That happened 2 days ago and the horse is not supposed to be processing that anymore. How can that happen? I've seen horses that the brakes went out on the dually and they were going down this long mountain road and the trailer flipped off and rolled with the horses in it. And it's amazing that the horses will actually get back in another horse trailer. Can you imagine being your head's tied and you're just tumbling down a mountain like that? There's so many things that happen, and it's time to just stop and say, okay, what's going on with my horse? So if the kidneys are stressed, the kidney meridian runs through the hocks, you're going to have hock issues. So in my level 2 class, what do we need to clear the kidneys? Do we need to release a trapped emotion? Do we need to do an essential oil? Do we need to do some microcurrent therapy? What do we need to support the kidneys? And when horses have COPD or other breathing issues, are the ribs are all in alignment? Is the diaphragm release from level 2? Are they able to expand and get a full breath? Is there any grief or other emotions affecting lungs? I've had a people client asthma on inhalers, and in Hawaii, the Bach can get to people. But we did the NCD detox and cleared 42 trapped emotions just in lungs, and he could get off his inhaler to paddle for canoe racing again. So it's just amazing what comes up in the emotion coding and asking what the organs need, So COPD horse, and he can't breathe and they can't sweat and it's hot and it's humid. How can we make this horse's day better? And how can we support endocrine and lungs and diaphragm function? So that's what all my classes get into that a bunch of other classes don't, that are just shiatsu or acupressure or massage or osteopathy. It's bringing everything together into. Some people want to know, well, how did my horse get this way? Your horse is 7 years old. And you're the 4th owner. There's so many things that could have happened. I just want to identify with what are the issues now, how do we get him to release them, and how do we move forward from there?
Right. I think when I was going through one of your distance readings the other day, and you get to the emotional section, like these are the trapped emotions in your horse, the first thing there, it just says something like, don't blame yourself, especially if this horse came to you. It's not about you personally. It's just about, like you said, dealing with it now.
Right. And the long distance readings I do, people just send in left and right side picture, and I give them a 7-page report, and they're like, what do you mean my horse has anxiety and overwhelm and fear and depression? These are all human issues. Well, come to find out, the horses are trying to take on the people's issues. So the therapeutic riding horses have a lot, the ones that are doing the veterans or the special needs kids or adults, people are usually donating an older horse that can just barely go around the arena because it's safe for an unbalanced rider. And I'm still sitting here going, oh my goodness, we still need to help that horse. He's still trapped in that body with all of that going on. And yeah, so I'm just like, don't take it onto yourself, just let it go. But every client that I've worked with usually has between 40 and 100 trapped emotions to release, especially in heart wall. We're wondering why we're in a relationship or family and we can't feel love, and we need to be able to clear all that out. And everyone in your family and your pets. And if you do that, you just feel the whole vibrancy of the whole household just come up. And it's not such a drudgery to go to that work or that job or anything. You can go with a lighter spirit and a lighter heart. And when we move from there, then we can actually attain, better health, emotionally, physically. Like I said, going to a job you hate or sleeping, having to share, a marriage bed with someone that you don't have a good relationship with, your body is going to start to have health issues.
Right. I know one of the things too, the Holistic Horseworks program, it's not always just about the horse, but it's about the owner too. So do you have tools or anything that you typically share with your students on like connecting with or healing or processing their own emotions during the process, or even like before they get to the horse? Because if you come to the horse and you're full of something, you're just going to give it to them.
Right. Or if your vitality is so low, you'll take on the health issues of the person or horse that you're working on. I had a handler that would hold the horses for me at this one barn, and she'd go, my back's hurting. Now my heel's hurting. Now I said, okay, use your yes now. Are these yours or is this the horse? and the horses will actually kind of telegraph, their health issues. So in my classes, it used to only be about the horses, but then the students weren't doing all of it. They just wanted to get to the physical releases. They didn't want to work on everything else. So we started adding that in for the students that come to my class, and they're like, I'm sleeping better and I'm not stressed. And, that person sent me that same mean text, but it's not affecting me the same way. And so it's nice to kind of remove ourselves from this tight anxiety situation and put us over here to where we can just say, wow. When they sign up either with my home study or they sign up for the hands-on classes, they're given all this homework and literature and videos to study and 160-page workbook so they can start working on themselves at home before they even come to the clinic. And we found that the people that are going to be really good at this type of work seem to have a lot more challenges. They get lost coming to the clinic. Things happen, and I'm just like, just keep focused right there, because that just means that you're going to be really talented and really good. And that was just the universe kind of putting up blocks for you. So you just need to clear all that. So since putting all these into nurture emails for the students that are coming as a reminder to clear their trapped emotion, do bladder sweeps and everything, they've gently prepared themselves in steps to get more out of my class, which is a really intense 3-day class that could easily be a 10-day class. There's so much information. People say, I had fibromyalgia. It's no longer bothering me. I have energy at the end of the day. Or my vision's improved. Or I can stand up easier from the chair without having to use my hands now. They're just noticing everything in their body. I do the first rib release on my students because that's part of, how we can or can't, use our shoulders and our arms. And tendonitis, bursitis, carpal tunnel goes away. And they're like, so how does that work? I said, well, just think now for your horse too. The horses had the first rib misaligned and it blocks everything through the thoracic outlet going down their front legs. And they're like, oh yeah, my horse can turn the barrels really fast and we're in 14 seconds and we're winning money now and stuff. So every little thing matters. The shape of the hooves, the shoulders, and the muscling in the horse and everything, and the emotional component. I mean, you have to have all of that to have a great competition horse.
So when you see a horse for the first time or when you're doing a distance reading, what are some telltale signs that a horse has trapped emotions?
Well, everybody has trapped emotions. So signs of it in person would be like horses that always pace, neurotic, can't stand still, don't like to be touched. They kind of tolerate grooming, but they don't really like grooming. I've had horses that were so aggressive to protect themselves that to do this body work, we had to put a bit in the mouth with the cavesson to close it down so I could have lateral control, just to work on atlas and axis with a soft movement because he was swinging his head so bad and trying to bite. And a lot of that's emotional. I had to get in there, get rid of some pain. They seem to store like right up in their pull area where they get damaged from pulling back with a halter when they're tied, kind of like a memory center. So I really like to work on the pull. And I've had horses that everyone's like, you're going to go work on that. It's a rearing, fire breathing dragon. And the next day the horse's head is down and the owner's touching his ears like this. And they're like, oh my God, what did you do? It's not even the same horse. I said, well, we had to get rid of the pain and then the anger and the defensiveness, because every time someone did something with him, it hurt him more. And the horses do try to tell us, that's hurting. That's the ears back and the tail swishing and all that. So it's just, how do you tell? So from a still picture, not so much. I look at tight muscling. Is it a hollow back? Is it high head? What's the condition of the coat? How tight is the groin? What's the angle on the hocks? And things like that. And then you have the more sensitive breeds, the Arabians and the thoroughbreds, who, they're hot-headed. So you just know that going into thoroughbreds and Arabians, you're going to move a little bit slower than you would with like a halfling or a fjord who's just like, whoop, whoop-a-doo, I'm okay. So it's just like dog breeds are more sensitive and emotional, like the Aussie healers, they're super needy and emotional. So are our horses.
So you mentioned a few things already about like techniques or tools that you can use for emotional healing. And can you go into that a little bit? I definitely know you have some resources, whether it's courses or products available on your website, but I would love to hear about like what are your most successful methods and how can we access them too?
So, one of the most important lessons I learned was watching the DVDs of Robert Tennyson Stevens' Conscious Language. And what you speak is going to be your truth. If you say my back is killing me, it's not going to get any better. So when my clients say, I have fibromyalgia, I have cancer, I have Lyme, it's like cancel clear. You have this issue in your body. And we need to see, what's starting the symptoms, even with Hashimoto's and thyroid. The woman wasn't absorbing the nutrients to feed the thyroid, and her throat chakra was really, really low. So she had no energy in here for thyroid and throat chakra. So we worked on it that way. So Robert Tennyson Stevens, I am, I can, I will, I have. You don't want to say, I want, because want is lack of. You don't want to say want and need and those kind of things. I have love, I love love, I will love. It's affirming that you already have it in your life. And I have little reminders that come up on my calendar every day for any little glitches in my life. All two-leggeds love and appreciate me, because most of my students say, I just want to work on horses. I don't want to work on people too. I said, yeah, but the people, are with the horses and the horses take on the people stuff. So yes, you need to work on them as like a
It's a
set.
package deal.
Yeah. So I had wanted to start traveling and teaching, and he had said red is the color of money. So get a red wallet, get a red anything when you want money coming in for your business. So I went home, and department store was having a closeout sale, and I bought a red suitcase. I said, I am going to be traveling, teaching. And I did not buy a carry-on because I want it to be for more than a week. I want to be teaching globally. And that red suitcase sat in my bedroom. I didn't put it away for 3 months before I got the first call and said, hey, would you come up to Oregon and do a clinic for us? And, yep, got my suitcase. So it's all these little things that we don't think that matters. And I learned mind mapping and manifesting from Robert Tennyson Stevens, and using the conscious words on that. Then I did Dr. Bradley Nelson, emotion code book, and that was great. I kind of teach my students how to make that more, better, faster, how to just get it faster and how to read it a little bit differently. And then we use that in level 2. So what's going on in lungs? Your horse isn't breathing. Do they have viral? Do they have bacterial? Do they need an emotion cleared? Do they need an essential oil like breathe? We just keep asking, what does this area of the body need? And just clearing trapped emotions in lungs can do a really big thing. So you've got the words you speak every day and your affirmations. You don't want to be losing weight, because it's not okay to lose car keys or lose money. So when I used to be 195 pounds and I was riding horses 250 miles a week, and everyone's like, why are you heavy if you're getting off and running with the horses? And that's all female thyroid issues. But I just put on my mirror, my perfect weight is 148. You don't want to say what you want to lose. You want to just see your goal. I have students that want to come to my class and they're like, I just can't afford it. I said, well, let's get rid of that wording. Now, how many horse clients do you have? Oh, about 10. So ask them, would you be willing to put in $100? I'm going to go take these new classes and your horse will be the first one I come back and do all this on. And they called me 2 days later and said, I have all the money. So it's just, we struggle. We try to figure out how we have to do all this by ourselves when we actually have a network that we could be using. And if you use the right language, you don't want to say, hey, can I borrow $100 to go take this class? You say, hey, I'm going to come back. I'm doing the certification program. I got to do case studies. Your horse is going to be the first one to receive all this. And would that be worth $100 donation for me? And they go, everybody said yes. So it's all in how we word it and stuff. So those are probably the most two important, along with Bach flower essences, I'd say would be my top three for getting on your right path and manifesting and choosing your words.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about the Bach flower essences? And so those relate to the dynamite release spray.
So Dr. Bach, B-A-C-H, discovered that different flower essences have different healing components on the emotional, spiritual level. And he has a whole book on everything. Like if you're not getting along with people or this and that, go take beach or go take Star of Bethlehem or something. And Dynamite used that. And they have 3 different recipes. And the release spray that we had showed is supposed to be more for external. We put it all over the horse's head, down the governing conception meridian, and we use it on bruises, trauma, and wounds. But we also put it in the horse's mouth. When I'm spraying it, some of the horses will try and chew on the bottle. And they'll get that internal, and all of a sudden they'll just go, and then they just kind of settle. So we also use it if a horse is colicking, we'll squirt it in their mouth or syringe it to them to just, when a horse is colicking and stressed, there's an emotional component to it. Their stomach's cramping, they can't pass the gas, they can't burp, everything's just in that area. And, when you're really upset or, stressed out, your stomach can really tie up a knot. So it's how do we get the body to relax while we work on the symptoms of the gas and what the blockage is. So same thing with wounds. We put the release spray on first. It takes the blunt trauma and bruising out, and everything can just heal so much faster in the cells. So I know they sell Rescue Remedy in health food stores, which is Bach flower essences, but there's a cute little book and you can just look up what everything's good for. And they're just amazing products. And the horse is like, wow, I just put that tranquil spray on the grain, 10 sprays, like you said, for 5 days. And now my horse doesn't mind getting in the trailer, taking away that fear and that, oh my God, it's going to be like last time.
Right. So I know right now I'm just imagining people listening to this and they're thinking like, oh, this sounds like out there, or this sounds a little airy-fairy, or like woo-woo, or however people phrase it. I think that even in our society, a lot of people aren't even in touch with their own emotions to begin with. So it's a whole big journey. But what would you have to say to people who maybe are a little bit hesitant to start, looking at things this way?
Jump in with both feet. I tell them to give me a call because they can send me a picture of them and I can kind of do a reading on them and tell them what's going on, why they don't feel good, why they're not sleeping, why they're hormonal. And when they start saying, oh my God, that's right on, or I give them a couple of trapped emotions to release and they're like, abandonment, Hartwell, age 26. Yeah, that's when my fiance left me or something. They'll be like, it's right on. And when you get that, just that, wow, that was right on, then they start to open like a flower and like, what else is possible and what else is possible. But you have to, other people say, I'll go buy my book. I'm like, no, let's have a talk. Let's see what's going on in your life, just like your horse. And I'll give you a couple free things to do and see how you feel. Because this is all going back to old plant medicine. This is what our ancestors did. And then they tried, making everything in pharmaceutical companies. And now that's all there's way too medicines out there, and the side effects of, oh yeah, take this for restless leg syndrome, which is only magnesium and selenium deficiency. And then they have a whole list of side effects. Might cause death, dizziness, you're just going on and on, where you don't have that with the plants. So it's time to get back to nature and nurture our bodies. Yeah. And call me.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I feel that. So we've explored so much already. Do you have anything else you want to mention on the topic of emotional healing for horses or horse owners before we close up?
So I have so many people that email that say, okay, I've been following you for 4 or 5 years now, and I'm finally ready, because everything you say is just what my horse is doing. And they're like, where do I start? And I'm like, well, let's either do my home study program or get the workbook. And I say, just try and learn 2 things a day. Don't overwhelm yourself. People like, oh my God, I have to fix all this at once. No, you don't. It didn't all get there at once. And they're like, so what do I start with first? So I give them the basic step-by-step program of, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And they're like, great, just 2 things a day. I can do that. I have the bandwidth to learn 2 new things a day. Great. So, and it's just being gentle on ourselves. And there's too many people that are out there, especially women, carrying the burden of the mom and the workforce and everything. And I'll tell my students, and it's 95% women that come to my class, why that is and why there isn't more men that want to get into this. We hope to change that someday, but it's, and like, you need to nurture yourself. Oh, I don't have time. I don't have 10 minutes to do the Alexander pose on the carpet so that my headache will go away, or my backache will go away. I'm like, if you don't start making yourself number 1 priority, then you're not going to be around to be able to help anybody else. And that's a big wake up call. They're like, my last clinic, I had a client that could barely walk and took both hands pushing on something to get up out of the chair. And we put her on the table on level 2 cranial sacral and did some unwinding and did some bomb sweats on her feet. And she's like, I'm noticing that I'm walking and my footprints are straight. And she's like, I got up out of the chair without having to use my hands. I said, yes, you're running an equine, rescue rehabilitation place, and you're not nurturing yourself. And she's like, I know, it was being so painful every day to try and do what I was doing for the horses. And this was a big wake up call that I need to stop and do some self-care. So that's also what I really promote. Even if it's just 10 or 20 minutes a day, we need to stop and say, this is what my spirit needs. This is what my body needs.
So I did, while you were talking about this, it brought up another time in a podcast before where you mentioned when you started learning kind of all this stuff, energy work, body work with horses, you had one of your teachers told you that you weren't sensitive enough to do it. And so how did you kind of come to terms with that, or relate to that, somebody saying that to you? And if somebody else feels like they're that person, how can
after I stopped crying about that, because this was my passion. My horse was hurting. I was always having to pay someone else. And for someone to say, you're not sensitive enough to feel this and this and that. And I tell people, so when I did the Dr. Bradley Nelson emotion coding, and most people have 60 to 100, I had asked how many trapped emotions I needed to release. It was 242. Wow. It's like, oh my goodness, no wonder why I'm going down this train track and it's not the life that I want. And I'm working 3 jobs with $17 left in my checking account after I make the house payment. And how do I get to this other trail? And it was interesting that stubborn came up 17 different areas in releasing the trapped emotions. I said, well, it's certainly a good thing that I had 17 counts of stubborn, so that I could find a way to still do this work and teach it to other people that don't feel it in their fingers, to just have the knowing that you're getting the job done. The worst thing we can do is not put your hands on the horses. They'll say, I didn't want to do it. I said, just go do bladder sweeps. on your horse. And then go offer to do it on 3 other horses and see what you feel the difference in that. And they go, oh, by the 3rd horse, I could finally feel something, where the coat was changing. Great, so don't just practice on one horse, learn one thing and go do it on a bunch of horses. I said, but it's certainly a good thing I had 17 counts of stubborn, because I didn't give up when I was told that I wouldn't be good enough and I wouldn't be sensitive enough to do this program. And now we teach it globally, and we have 10 instructors working for me. And I give and empower my students that come to have a knowing. I was teaching a clinic at this beautiful barn in England with Jean, and we went to this facility, and the lady used to be a paramedic. So she was all left brain. There was no intuitive. There was no yes, no answers. We did a little evening clinic where I just kind of show what's wrong with the horses. And then we were going to do level 1, 2, and 3 in a row. And just coming out of that evening 2-hour clinic, she's going, witchcraft, but by the time she did level 1, 2, and 3, she's walking through the fields going, and that foal over there has first bout on the right side. Let's get him in. And that one over there has this, this, and this. So it was nice to see that growth and change and expansion in someone in 10 days, to go from yes, no is witchcraft or the devil, where it's just kinesiology asking what the body needs, to I can see a horse from 10 feet away and tell you which bones aren't in alignment, bacterial and viral issues, what else is going on in the body, and what does the body need for that? And that is, people are saying, you're praying to God and you're asking for help. This is a way to ask and get help. What does the body need? What's going on with the body? What's going on with the cells?
Right. Yeah. I just love how you put it that way.
So it's a good thing I was stubborn. And it's interesting because my life changed when I took that class, and you can clear your parents and they don't have to be there. 110 of those emotions were my mom's, and she was still alive. So I worked on her and me over 3 months. And in that 3-month period, our whole lives did a whole 180 flip. I was traveling, teaching local clinics. I wanted to get broader. And she was living on a mountain and just really happy being there. But I didn't like her up in the snow, kind of being a hermit. And she sold the house and moved into town and bought a condo. And then she was donating gardening services all around the condo, just cleaning it up. And everybody was loving her. And I got invited to teach in London, and all 3 classes filled up. And it was just amazing. Just by doing all the trapped emotions, it changes how you respond to people. When that mean friend sends you a mean text, instead of saying, F you back or whatever, I could just text, wow, that really hurt. Was that your intention? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess I was kind of snippy in that. So it's just, it changes how we react to things. And it's just so much nicer. I only have friends in community now that are loving and supportive and kind, and no little people.
If somebody is feeling super inspired right now to jump off of this podcast and to start on their own emotional healing, or their emotional healing for their horse, where is the very first place you would direct them to?
I would direct them to my free ebook, because it's so cute and it's so informative, and it kind of explains in a gentle, soft way how all of these issues get started. And that's horseacademy101.com. So that's my first book that I put out. You can email me, April@holistichorseworks.com. I've got 3 Facebook pages, 2 YouTube channels, Instagram. Just connect with me. People are always amazed that I respond within like 24 to 36 hours.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Holistic Horseworks Talks with April Love. Remember to check the show notes for links to all the resources mentioned in this episode. Have a question you'd like to submit to the podcast? Email April@holistichorseworks.com for a chance to get it featured on the next episode. Loved this information? Share it with your horse friends. They'll find it helpful too. To learn more, visit holistichorseworks.com. And before you go, make sure you have a copy of our free ebook, Horse 101, everything you wish you had known before you got your first horse, at horseacademy101.com.